Well, welcome everybody into the sanctuary here at Fam Church. We're delighted that you are here. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. Fam Church, do me a favor and put your hands together and let's welcome our online community. God bless you for being here with us this morning. Forgot to have you check in, so those of you who are watching, just hold on a minute. And so do me a favor back there in the back who's working the screens, if you'll put our QR code up there. Just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to check in. If you're online and you want to check in, there's a way that you can do that as well. But do me a favor, open up your phone app and scan that QR code, and you can check in there. It takes you directly to our website. You can either check in if you're a regular, or you can, if you're new, you can also start the conversation between you and I by filling out the information. There's two little places there for you to click. One says register or check in for new, and so whichever of those clicks fits you, then make that happen, and we'll make that happen today. So God bless you, and thanks for being here. Sorry I forgot that. I was so fired up about BGMC and Speed the Light that I forgot. So anyway, now we're ready to change gears, and I want everybody to welcome Miss Kristen back to the platform. Yes. So, Miss Kristen, you joined me last week for Mother's Day, and you're going to be joining me every day through Father's Day. And this is when we normally talk about our lives, how we do life together. And we shared last week how hectic life is. Well, if you can imagine trying to raise kids in a hectic life, it's difficult with everything going here and there. And so today we're going to take some time out and talk about raising children. This may not be applicable to everybody, obviously, but it's where we are when it comes to raising kids. Either you've been set free and delivered and your kids have left home, hello, or your kids are really, really small, or you haven't started venturing down that street yet. Listen, get ready. Or if you're in the throes of it like we are, trying to raise children in this world in which we live it's hectic. It's a chore. I mean, you have to be really intentional about raising children in this environment. So Miss Kristen, if you don't know, she's a licensed marriage and family therapist. That's what she does. She's around people all the time. She sees young people, young kids. And if you don't know, my friends and those of you who are watching, it's epidemic what's going on in our culture. There are so many kids. Ask a school teacher. Ask a school teacher. We have so many young people who are totally messed up. Totally messed up. Their moms and dads are out smoking dope somewhere. They're running. A lot of these kids are being raised by their grandparents. And how do you know when you get to the age of a grandparent, the last thing you want to do is raise kids. You don't have the strength and everything for that. Come on, grandparents. Who in the world wants that, right? You're like, I done my bit. Hey, I'm done here. But then what happens when it gets visited upon you and you've got nothing, you've got no recourse, right? So she sees a lot of that. So she's going to be an invaluable resource today as we go through some of this stuff about trying to raise children in a hectic world. What do you say about that, Miss Kristen, first off this morning?
Well, yeah, I will say it's definitely, especially since COVID, even more of an increase in mental health symptoms among our kids. I'm pretty sure the stat right now is 1 in 4. So you saw these kids running in here. I don't know how many we had, but 1 in 4 kids you can pretty much guarantee have a mental health diagnosis. So not even just a struggle with something.
That's a lot of kids. And so the schools are full, the houses are full, and here we are as believers trying to make things work within our own in our own lives and in our own house. Both of us are products of divorce. Okay? So we brought into our marriage issues. You feel me? So we brought all that stuff in there. I had a lot more issues than she had. Okay? Let's just be honest there on that deal. And so our parenting styles are vastly different. I'm a lot more lackadaisical than she is. She is a tyrant.
I can be, so it's fair. You have to know yourself, right? You've got to know who you are, and you've got to know
And
who
I'm
your
too
spouse
forgiving,
is.
right? And so we grew up in different environments, and we raise our children differently. And so the top three, of course, fusses that people have in their marriages are how are we going to raise and discipline the children, money, right, and intimacy. Those are the top three. That's what most couples fight over all the time. And so when it comes to children, Krista and I are no different, how we raise our children. I was raised by a single mother. The only father figure I had was a man born in 1918. World War II vet, Battle of the Bulge vet. He'd cuss you out in about 5 seconds. You know what I mean? And so he was hard to get along with. Kristen knows him and knew him before he passed away. Hard to get along with. It's difficult, in these situations that we live. Kristen knows how I was raised in that, they'd just send me outside to do work, right? I didn't know what I was doing. But I'd go outside. My grandpa had Ford Falcons. Anybody know what Ford Falcons are? Yeah. So my grandpa had a Ford Falcon for every year that they were built, right? He loved those things. I'm going to get me one of these days. Don't shake your head at me.
That's for the finance topic.
I'm going to get me a Ford Falcon, probably about a 63 model, olive green. That thing's going to be lit. But anyway, he'd send me out and he'd say, John, we're going to take this car. And he had them all nicknamed. He'd say, we're going to take this car, go put the battery in it. Because he had like 7 models of Ford Falcons, but we had one battery. Did anybody grow up redneck like that? You had one, and if you wanted to go somewhere, you had to go disconnect the battery, take it to the car that you were going to use, hook the battery up. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Is that just me? Yeah, I was ready. And then, here it gets even worse. We had one tag. Is anybody raised that way? Just me? Okay, that's so embarrassing. But it's redneck. That is, listen, if you've got 7 Ford Falcons and 1 battery and 1 tag, you are a redneck. And Papa would say, get on out there and take the battery out of this and then put it in that and then put the tag on it. So, you'd go out there and switch batteries and switch tags, and he expected me to do that, right? And he'd send me out there. Well, if I couldn't figure it out, then he'd show me. But he was trying to teach me to be independently minded and to work through things on my own. You see what I mean? And if I couldn't figure it out on my own, then he would be there to help me, right? And so nowadays when kids and how they're born, you tell them, Johnny, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to pick this rock up and I want you to move it right there. And you have to micromanage everything, right? And they pick the rock up and they move it from point A to point B, and then you have to praise them. You are amazing. You are amazing. I have never seen anyone move a rock quite like you. You are simply amazing. And they're all sitting there going, I know it. And then they get out in the world, and the world punches them right in the mouth. You see what I mean? So you got these two extremes of how you parent people. Either you're constantly telling your kids they're amazing when they're not, or you're constantly ripping them, because they can't do something right. And there's got to be a balance, Miss Kristen.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's definitely have to be a balance. We don't want to give them praise when it's not deserved. Because then we get kids who think they're entitled and they're the best, and you want to give them praise on something they're actually accomplishing, that they're doing well at. That's what we want to praise our children for. The more you praise in a certain area, the more of that behavior you're going to get. So you always want to praise the positive, and then you don't want to be a tyrant for sure, because you just push your kids away and they hate you, and nobody wants that type of kid.
Right. So I don't know that we're going to build self-esteem in our children by constantly telling them that they're amazing, right? But I also know that in the Bible, especially in the book of Ephesians, and it's on the screen now, it tells us not to drive our children to anger. I think the old King James language is exasperation. Don't just stay on them day and night. So the word of the Lord says this in Ephesians chapter 6. Children, obey your parents in the Lord. Kids, listen to me who are in here now. Obey us. You say, now why do I have to, and so the young people are in here, why do I have to obey my mama and my daddy? Because until you get out on your own, the Lord is trying to teach you to obey. And so there is a system that the Lord has set up that you learn to obey by listening to your mama and daddy before you ever get grown, because when you get grown, then you're going to start listening and obeying the Lord. And if mamas and daddies don't teach their children how to obey, when they get older, okay, they're going to have trouble. That's the problem that we see in our culture now. Nobody wants to enforce discipline in their home, right? Y'all really want me to go there? Because I will. No one really wants to enforce discipline in their home because mamas and daddies are on this all the time. And as soon as mamas and daddies get home, this is where they retreat. And we give one of these to our kids too. And we disappear off into wherever that is out there, and we're not invested in our children. And now we got problems because we're not teaching them, right, that when they leave home, there's going to be a whole great big world out there that they're going to have to learn to navigate.
Well, and there's a problem when all of our kids are in their own room with their devices, and we're like this with our own devices. Turn that way.
I'll turn this way.
Now we have a problem. Our kids are, if this was our house, our kids are in their own room on their own device. And here we are. How are we connected as a family? You're not.
You're not. And so you have to learn to obey, and we'll get into cell phones here in a little while. But you have to learn to obey. You have to learn to discipline your children. You have to be involved in your children. Listen to me. Let me repeat that. You have to be involved in your children. If you don't get involved in your children, somebody else will. It's hard work. But for their sakes, get involved in their lives. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for it's right. Honor your mother and your father. This is the first commandment with a promise. What's the promise? That it'll go well with you and you'll live long on the earth. Fathers, and for whatever reason, it's starting to change in our cultures. Mothers are driving their children to exasperation too. Fathers and mothers, don't provoke your children to anger. I'm telling you, if you ride your kids all day long, listen to me, mamas and daddies, they're going to hate you. It's exhausting, is it not, to constantly say, no, 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 don't touch this, no, no, come here, no, 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 no. There was a lady who used to go to church here. She was the treasurer when I first got here, Claudia Dubois. And she raised 5 children by herself. And she gave me some invaluable advice one time. She said, pick you about 5 things that you will not tolerate and stick to that. The rest of it, let it go, because if you don't, you're going to be nuts, and your children are going to be nuts, and everybody around you is going to be nuts. So don't constantly stay on your kids. There's a few things that Kristen and I have that we're just simply not going to tolerate from our children. Number 1, disrespect. You put sass in your mouth, I'll knock it clean out. Because we're not putting up with sass in a mouth that we feed. You got me? Everything you do, listen, I'm going to tell you what my mama used to tell me. I don't care if you get to be 80, I own the air you breathe. So do not get smart with your mom and your daddy. Do not disrespect us, because it's not going to end well for you if you do that.
I think that's why it says if you do, you may live long on the earth.
Right. Exactly right. So, you have to be careful with these things. Now, the last part of this verse dovetails nicely into another part of the conversation that we're going to have. Miss Kristen, before I move, do you got anything else that you want to add on that?
Are we talking discipline?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I want to say for the parents out there, one, to pick a couple rules, and you and your spouse have to be on the same page. You can't disagree, and so we parent very differently. And we still parent very differently, but the rules that we have are very much the same. And we agree on rules and consequences in our home, and that's what we enforce. And so you as a couple have to have that behind closed doors.
Yes.
That conversation happens out of the ear of your children. And when one of them comes to you and the other one has said no, you say no. And if they go to him and he says yes, I say yes. Like we don't fight that battle with our kids, or it would just be disastrous. So that is probably one of the biggest things for spouses to have, and then consistency with those rules. But our kids are in a different stage of life right now, and as he told you, I'm kind of a tyrant. And as a kid, when they're little, you're doing a lot of work of following rules, safety rules, being safe in the community, not running out the roads. I mean, you're constantly teaching them how to behave and be safe in a social world. But our kids right now are in a different age, and so I honestly have changed some of my parenting tactics as they've become teenagers. We have 2 teenage females in our house, and that can cause a lot of sass. I mean, just naturally, and I am their mother, so that doesn't help either. And so, well, I mean, I was very strong-willed as a child, and my mom will tell you that I put myself in timeout because I just was going to do what I was going to do. So my kids get it naturally from me, but there is something called being with your kids' emotions. And, especially with females, their emotions can kind of go up and down, up and down. And if we're trying to come against them, we're going to have explosions in the home if we're not mirroring what they're going through. And so I've been on a journey over, the past year probably, of learning to meet their emotion with how they're feeling. How are they doing in the moment? What is it that emotion is showing me that they need? And there's usually one of 2 things. Do they need security from me? Do they need me to let them know they're safe, that they're loved, that they're cared for? Or do they need some exploration that I need to back off and let them go do their thing? And so I found that if I can meet them and kind of say, okay, that was hard, or understand them, that sass goes away a lot quicker, and we can have real meaningful conversation about what's happening in their world. And as your kids, and even if you have adult children, that's what they need, is connection. They need to have open conversations, and they need to know that you're going to be there with them and for them no matter what. And so that's been my own journey that I've been on for our teenage girls, is being with their emotion and not trying to come against them.
Yeah. And so we were raised very differently. She was from a very large family. I had a nucleus of 5. When our children were real small, she can tell you, I had a very difficult time trying to adapt to fatherhood and being around kids that cried and wanted something all the time, because I'd never been around it, Tim, like ever. I actually took some time and tried to do some self-introspection. I was like, why are they driving me this nuts? Why can't I get in this whole fatherhood thing when they're little? Why am I disconnected? And I look back and I thought, and the problem was, I was never around kids. I was never around kids, ever, other than when I was at school. But I mean, I never had cousins that I was around. We lived out in the sticks, and I was just never around kids. And so when when Kristen started having our children, I was around them. I didn't know what to do with them. They would just scream and yell and wanted something all the time. It used to drive me nuts. I'd disappear off in the woods, I'd be like, I couldn't handle it. needed to get something that was familiar. And so I can remember thinking back, I said, Lord, when they get older, I'll be better equipped. So I'm coming into my own finally as a father because I'm able to have conversations with them on a different level because I never understood them as kids. I mean, they were mine, but I just didn't get them at all. I couldn't wrap my head around it. And so thankfully they're getting older and we're able to have conversations, and I'll go through the extra lengths of trying to explain, especially to the older two, why her mother and I have come to the conclusions that we've come to when it comes to telling them no. And I'll take the time to explain it. Now, unfortunately, they don't like my explanation, so they go on and on and on, and I'm finally saying, I'm done. This is the way we are. And I tried to explain it. You want to be an idiot? Fine, go. Because this is the way we're going to do it. And so finally, I feel like I'm becoming a father to them. Whereas when they were little, I couldn't connect. So, discipline children. We got about 10 minutes left. Anything else on discipline before I change gears on you? If you got something else. Okay, all right. One of the number one things that causes us grief, told you we was going to get back to cell phones, this right here. This causes more fights in our house. You hear me? Everybody dialed in? This causes more fights in our house than anything else that you can imagine. This right here. I've got some statistics here that I'd like to read about what happens and where we are when it comes to cell phones and people. Pretty alarming stuff. Move my iPad out of the way here as I go through this. First of all, 81% of all Americans have a cell phone. 81%. That's a lot of us. Every day, the average American either swipes, clicks, or taps 2,617 times per day. Did you hear what I just said? 2,617 times per day on a cell phone. That's how much we're invested in it. 31% of Americans never turn their cell phones off. 45% of kids ages 10 to 12, Kristen, have a cell phone. Not in our house. 82% of working people, have their cell phone nearby while they're working so they can look at it. They got to have it. We are addicted to these things. 52% of teenagers want to take steps to cut back on their cell phone use. They just don't know how. iPhone users, I've got an iPhone, unlock their phones on an average of 80 times a day. They unlock it over 80 times a day. Most people spend at least 5 hours a day on their phones. There's 24 hours in a day. You sleep about 8. You spend over 5 hours. The average American spends over 5 hours a day on this. Now, obviously, this causes trouble. By the way, 71% of us sleep with a cell phone within reaching distance. 71% have that thing right there. I got to be able to get it. I got to be able to touch it. But consequences to that. 56% of teenagers have negative emotions when they don't have this. And I know you got something to say about that. Our children, they're different animals when they got this. When we take this away from them, first of all, there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. When we take this away from one of our children, they just absolutely lose it.
It's your greatest discipline tool if your kid has one.
they are so addicted to these things that when we take it away from them, they lose it. But what Chris and I have found, and I know you're going to speak to some of this, is that after about a day or two, their attitude and their mouth and everything about them, their whole disposition completely changes. Go ahead, Miss Kristen.
Yeah, so we're very strict on cell phone usage. Faith is the only one that has an actual phone that has data and works. Emily has an iPod Touch. She's 12. The only thing she can do is message her friends, and use her calculator. I mean, so we are very strict parents. We know that everyone else is not like that. But because of what I see on a daily basis in teenagers, and I see extreme negative consequences. And I just want to read you some of it. And this is from Forbes magazine. This is a secular magazine. So they don't even, most likely don't have our morals and values related to Christ. But here are some stats for teenagers. Eating disorder risk is increased with social media use. Depression, lower self-esteem, appearance anxiety, and body dissatisfaction are all associated with Instagram use. Posting selfies impacts mood. When a teenager posts a selfie, their mood actually decreases. Even if they're allowed to use the touch-up, where they can touch up their appearance, their mood still decreases. And that was for college-aged women for that one. Social media use increased the desire for cosmetic surgery. Brain activity changes with likes. It's literally like a chemical addiction when they start seeing those likes. If they're increasing, you're gonna feel a little better. When they're not getting a like after 60 seconds, they're having those negative moods. Drive for thinness is increased with Instagram use. Manipulation of photos is a problem for their body image. Teenage girls and the increase of eating disorders, which I spoke about already, they compare themselves at a greater risk. Their suicide thoughts have increased with social media use. And if they don't use social media, then they have a reduced feeling of loneliness compared to the other teenagers. And they have reduced symptoms of depression if they do not use social media. We see anxiety, we see self-harm increasing in the teenage use. And then, listen to this statistic. The average exposure to pornography is age 9 because they have unmonitored devices. You would think, that's for little boys. Males and females, average age, it's younger than Curry. That's the kids over here in our kids' wing, age 9 that they're being exposed to pornography. 90% of males are exposed by the time they're 18 to pornography. This phone can be disastrous for our kids' mental health and for their life.
Yeah, and as you were saying, the whole suicide thing, I mean, it has gone through the roof. The iPhone come out in 2009, okay? So from 2010 to 2015, among girls, there was a 65% increase in teen suicide. 65%.
Yeah. If a middle schooler comes in, about 99.9%, something about this or a device, something that's happened, some type of usage with social media, it's related.
So, as the pastor of this church, I get lots of questions about cell phones. Pastor John, what are we going to do? Our kids, this whole cell phone thing. And so listen, I'm just going to be brutally honest with you on this deal. If you don't want that fight, then do not get them that phone. Hear me. Don't even, it's the same thing for me and Kristen. You know what I mean? And there's a reason why, even Faith Elizabeth, our oldest, who has a phone, who needs a phone because she's at school a lot by herself, or she's got after school curricular activities, she's got a job now. I get it. She needs a phone. She does not have a social media account.
If you see a social media, let me know. Because, they're teenagers.
These
she
little
may have
rascals,
one that we don't know about.
These little rascals, they'll go behind your back and set this stuff up, and parents don't even know. So, yeah, we have to keep one another informed on this deal. But as the pastor of the church, I am constantly giving people want to know, hey, what do we do with these cell phones? Because it is causing a lot of conflict in a lot of homes, because their mamas and daddies will get their cell phones. And I think most parents here at Fam Church try to regulate what their kids see. But I'm here to tell you, if you think that you're keeping all that stuff out from in front of your kids' eyes, you're nuts. There's no way. There's way too much of it. There is way too much of it.
We can protect our children by having filters on their phone, which we do, by setting limits on our phone, but they have friends who their parents don't limit what they do. And so they're going to be exposed to something that you don't want. You can't wrap them in a bubble and never let them have any exposure to anything. So the importance is conversations with them. You've got to have conversations about what they're being exposed to in this world, with social media, with their friends, with that school, because they are going to be exposed to things. But you can also, as a parent, limit that based on what your own rules and values are in your home.
Yep. And so what Kristen and I do is we're very, very strict on cell phone usage. We try to monitor everything they do. We set screen time limits. We do all of that. When we notice or see that our children are not behaving as we would like for them to behave online, what do? When you see something on a phone that goes, I thought I was teaching you better, or as my grandma used to say, I thought I was learning you better than that. What are you doing? And so here, listen to me, mamas and daddies. If you're going to give your kid a cell phone, okay, and there's discipline issues, listen, you need to be able and willing to take them to the Word of God in your home and show them with the Word of God why we as Christians do not act or behave or view or tolerate such things as we are seeing. Now listen, that's going to require mamas and daddies, listen to me, mamas and daddies, that's going to require mamas and daddies in here, okay, to know the Word of God. Do you understand where our culture is going? The thing there for a while was what we wanted to do as parents is we wanted to outsource, okay, the raising of our children to the kids' pastors or to the youth pastors. We're going to raise the house but I expect the children's pastors and the youth pastors to give my children spiritual instruction. Listen, spiritual instruction in your home, especially you daddies, that's your job. Y'all should have shouted me down. They should have shouted me down over that, Kristen. Daddies, that's your job. Are you the priest of your home or ain't you? Do not outsource, because that's what it is. We're so busy. Yeah, we're so busy. We waste 5 hours a day on this right here. But we're so busy, okay, that we can't even take the time to instruct our children in the ways of everlasting, and we want to outsource that to Josh and Amanda and give them 25 minutes of biblical instruction a week. Or we want to outsource that to Matt and Brittany, who have them for 25 minutes a week. I'm telling you, if you're going to give your kids a cell phone, and I understand at some point they got to have one, you better be able to take them to the Word of the Lord. I know we're running out of time, but look at this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These words which I'm commanding you today shall be on your heart. You shall repeat them diligently to your sons. You put daughters in there. Doesn't say anything about youth pastors teaching your children this. Doesn't say anything about children's pastors teaching this. This is your job as a mama and a daddy. Now, is Josh and Amanda supposed to supplement what you do at home? Absolutely. Is Matt and Brittany supposed to supplement and come alongside of you and encourage and foster that? Absolutely. That is. But if you are outsourcing the spiritual raising of your children to Josh and Amanda or Matt and Brittany, you've got to stop. These children were given to you by the Lord. Come on. So you're supposed to tell your sons and daughters, you speak of them. Look how many times in a day. You speak of them when you sit at your house, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. You're also supposed to tie them on your hands, and they shall be as frontals on your forehead. You write them on the doorpost of your home or on your gates. They wanted the word of the Lord everywhere you went to be reminded that the Lord God is the one that we serve. You are to teach your children the things of God if you're going to do this whole deal right here.
Well, and if you think the world isn't impacting them, and they've figured out a way to keep things in front of their face. And we have to do an even tougher job of removing this from front of their face and having real, honest conversations about life in this world and the Lord with them. We have to communicate with them. That's the only way our children are going to make it in this world being a Christian, is to have these hard conversations. I can talk about my girls, anything. Everything. They need to have a conversation. And Faith will say, well, Emily doesn't have to tell you that. Oh, no, we're going to talk about that. Or Emily said, well, Faith doesn't have to tell you that. No, we're going to have the conversation, and I don't know is not an answer. We are going to do that because I'm going to be able to implant into their little hearts and their minds what the Lord wants for their life. And I'm not allowing anyone else to do that but me.
Amen to that. Good word, Miss Kristen. So listen, we're with you. We understand it is a tough go out there, but in this hectic world, I'm telling you, you got this. We're here with you. We're here to support you. Hopefully something we've said today has resonated with you, and you understand we're right there in the thick of things with you. We're praying for you. We've got you back. I hope you've got ours. We will get through this weird season in our culture together. I believe that with all of my heart. Amen? Stand to your feet today. Let's ask Miss Kristen to say a prayer over everybody, especially with these children, and then I'll bless you in the name of the Lord. Miss Kristen, pray for us.
Lord, we just thank you for today and all that you are and all that you have done, and the children that you have blessed us with, our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews, our friends' children, Lord. And I pray right now that you provide every person that hears my voice wisdom on how to guide and direct and raise our children in the Lord, so that they are able to walk going forward and stand against the peer pressure, stand against the attacks, stand against the devil that is trying to destroy their lives, Lord. Allow us to be able to be with our children and help our children through a crazy world. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, raise your hands to the heavens. Let me bless you today. Now may the Lord bless you, and may God keep you. And may the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May God be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance on you, and may he give you peace. Receive that in the mighty name of the Lord. I love you. Go and do good.